Welcome, everybody, to the City Builders Podcast. I'm excited to be with my good friend, Dan Ferreira, who is the founder and CEO of US Offsite. And if you have never heard of US Offsite, you are definitely going to be hearing about it this year in 2026 because you guys have a lot of great projects that are underway literally as we speak right now. And it's a great company that builds volumetric modular construction. They're building right now in Reading, future plans for a plant in Anderson. And in this episode, we talk a lot about affordability, why it's so hard to build in California, what US Offsite is going to do to solve those problems. And it's a great conversation. It gets a little technical, but it's a lot of fun. So Dan, thanks for being here today.
Great to be here.
Welcome to the City Builders Podcast, brought to you by the Reading Chamber of Commerce. I'm Todd Jones, President and CEO. In each episode, we bring you insights from local business leaders, tackle important issues, and explore what's shaping the future of Reading. Whether you're a business owner or just interested in our community's growth, this podcast has something for you. Thanks for joining us. The City Builders Podcast is brought to you by Obsidian IT. Obsidian IT is a Reading-based, employee-owned technology company providing simple, scalable, outsourced IT for your business. Discover how Obsidian cares about IT and give them a call at 530-242-6000 or obsidianit.com. Obsidian keeps us running at the Chamber, and we could not do business without them. So Dan, we met.
Okay.
We met 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
9 years ago. You came to town.
Yeah.
And you are the founder and CEO of US Offsite.
That's who I am.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I followed your journey for a long time, but maybe I guess we can kind of warm up a little bit, but just tell us kind of how you got here. How did you get to Reading? How long have you been thinking about US Offsite?
Yeah.
And then we'll get into some technical details about US Offsite.
How does anyone get to Reading?
Yeah.
You drive north.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the way I got here. So I grew up in San Diego, had a great childhood there, played baseball, played water polo, surfed, went to college at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, which on a whim.
The only Cal Poly.
The only Cal
Now
Poly.
there's three. I'm a Cal Poly alumni as well. I went to Humboldt State, which is now Cal Poly.
I know. So do you claim it? Do you walk around the thing?
My LinkedIn says Cal Poly Humboldt.
okay.
So I'm smarter than I was when I graduated college.
I'm not pretentious enough to qualify it with Cal Poly slow every time.
It's the only
went
one.
to Cal Poly.
That's
I
fair.
went to a state school. I'm a state school kid. But that place has gotten crazy lately. So went there, got married there, and then spent 20 years in San Luis Obispo. And one of the only ways you can survive in San Luis Obispo, like some other places too, is you basically, the cost to live there exceeds your normal earning income, and it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
And so, kind of always had an entrepreneur bug, always had a starter bug, and out of college I got a construction management degree. Did a whole bunch of different jobs along the way in architecture and construction and different things like that. And stepped out in 2011, started a home building company. And day one, it was me on the tools, remodeling houses. And I'd already...
You were swinging hammers.
I was swinging. It was just me. Actually, I'd spent about the maybe 8 years prior running projects, commercial projects, just doing paperwork in the trailer and all that kind of stuff. And then I ran a home building company for a while. But I had kind of skipped over some of the site time and was remodeling houses in college and stuff like that. But so I felt like if I was going to build an Integris company, I needed to go back and start and fill in some of that time. So I spent a couple of years on the tools with a small team, a crew, and then we grew and we grew and we grew, and we ended up at $30 million a year, doing about 15 high-end customs a year, $1 to $2 million builds, sometimes higher, some light commercial mixed in. And then along the way, I also started a window and door company. After the crash of 2008, there was just a huge vacuum. That county went from, like a lot of places, I think it pulled 300 custom home permits the year before, then it pulled 4.
Wow.
So in 2009, 10, 11, it was just tough. It really reset the whole landscape of that industry on the coast there. So there was a lack of window and door, so I started a window and door company and still have the company. We import product from Wisconsin, Michigan, just really good old manufacturers making wood windows or modern aluminum stuff or that. And then we also started a couple years after that a steel window and door company, which is just we call it like stupid money.
High end, super high end.
Super high end. So we hand make a window out of steel And it pretty much goes into homes worth over about $50 million.
Wow.
And the most expensive homes in Bel Air and Santa Barbara, Montecito, and stuff like that. So really cool. So we have we have a manufacturing operation that builds that product in San Luis Obispo, and we had the window and door dealership, and then we were building as a contractor, and we had all our own tradesmen on staff. So that was kind of the journey I was on. It was about a 10-year grind. And then we also had an architecture and engineering studio I started. So we had about 20 people. We did all our own design, all our own structural engineering. So we had this whole suite of sort of design build, ecosystem. We had built enterprise.
Whole thing.
Vertically integrated.
Yeah,
And just in love with the idea of innovation and vertical integration and collaboration. And that flies in the face of a lot of industry norms and industry standards. So it was an uphill fight. But after about 10 years, it really was, 10 years of serving a community will change everything.
Yeah.
People know who you are.
Yeah.
You've built a lot of goodwill. So right about the 10-year mark, everything's going well. And we were also lay pastoring and had a church growing significantly during that time. So that was a lot of fun. And then my wife kind of got this itch. She's like, I think there's something else for us.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, no,
everything's going great. Let's leave.
I was like, we have a house, the ocean's a mile away. There's horses. Life is good. Like there's finally a little bit of earnings coming our way. So she just, like most things, women, very intuitive, was like, I think our kids are meant to actually get something else. And so, living on the coast comes with some different cultural things that they were starting to experience as they got to junior high and stuff like that. So we looked at Reading. We had some family here, and so my wife is to blame.
Okay,
So
Kristen,
short
thank you.
answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So you have the vision for what you created, which is US Offsite, before you got up here. So how did that kind of how did the US Offsite origin story
We were
come?
pretty much just vertically integrating. So we're doing design, structural engineer, we're doing construction, we have our own trades, concrete crews, framing crews, own all the equipment. We have supply chain companies that are, our window and door and millworks department. And so at some point you're going, how can I provide these 100 people, 150 people, the quality of an experience working in this industry that I'm dreaming of? And what I was used to was like, most of the guys on tools were treated disposable. Hey, we have a job. Okay, the job's over. Go away.
See you later. Yeah.
And I was just like, this isn't right. We want to create something totally different. We want a 100-year company.
Yeah.
And so that was the impetus. And we struggled because even on the Central Coast, it's not raining. We only get like 20 inches a year of rain, but you'd be trying to keep everybody employed through the winter. We would work about 100-mile radius. You'd have 30 different jurisdictions within that 100-mile radius. You had 40 different water jurisdictions, so you're dealing with planning and building and then special overlay zones. And everywhere you go, you're dealing with all these jurisdictional hoops. If anybody thinks a permit or Shasta County is hard, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You have no idea until you've lived and built on the coast in Southern California.
The Coastal Commission?
Yeah. Coastal planning departments, building departments. I could go on and on. I mean, there's the political part of it. Then there's just the bureaucracy that's piled on, and then there's all these other things. So, battling all of that to try to create sustainable employment so that we could innovate. Because if you don't have sustainable employment, if you don't have people that are with you,
There's no knowledge base.
there's no knowledge base. You're just recycling, and so. And you also don't ever, your basic, it's just a transactional industry. And I was like, we gotta change this. So that was the impetus, is like, how do we change this? So we started fiddling with a little bit of prefabrication, where we'd go, hey, we have a warehouse as part of our operation. What can we do there? Plus we had a window manufacturer over here. So I had a model of like precision manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do we cross that over into the building side? And so we're fiddling. But but at the end of the day, if anyone knows anything about construction, you're kind of beholden to the local jurisdiction's process. So I can innovate, prefabricate, but I have to pass an inspection with the city inspector in that city over there and do it his way. And so you're always fighting this element of sight.
Right.
And then we were fighting the weather, right? So here comes 3 weeks of rain.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, I guess we're not breaking ground on that project. I guess we're not doing, and this sort of thing. So, I mean, I've slept on rooftops during rainstorms. I've, because we were always very aggressive about schedule.
Right.
So yeah, so the dream was to create something sustainable that wasn't a circus. And what ended up happening over the years is we would have good years and bad years. Our guys by giving them a constant, we would just, as the owner, I would absorb a lot of ups and downs. And so I did a little research and basically came to this place where this concept called volumetric modular was the one that stood out to me. And so I was incubating it. And then my wife's like, let's just think about moving to Redding, California. And I said, okay, if I go there, I got to do something. Yeah. And so the two visions started to collide about, is this the right place to do this new idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna have you explain what US Offsite is in like a elevator pitch, 30 seconds. But I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna see how close, because I've known about this company. Yeah. Probably, gosh, longer than most people in this town. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've seen different versions. I've seen lots of versions of US Offsite over the years. So US Offsite, the technical term is it's a volumetric modular construction. But the way that I explain it to people is you basically build everything in a warehouse, including artwork and plumbing and lights and all the things. And then you put it together like Lego blocks when you get to the site, so you can save a ton of time.
Legos.
Yeah, it's Legos. It's Legos. But the big thing is it's not mobile homes. No. It's not mobile homes. Our family has an ADU, which we'll talk a little bit about how all that works in a little bit, but it's not, because it's 2x6, 2x4 construction. Mm-hmm. It's like the real deal on a foundation. So it's financeable. That's right. Which is a big deal. That's right. So that's my pitch. That's my pitch. But obviously that's very surface level. There's a lot more to it. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's volumetric modular. So the reason we use the title volumetric is we build volumes. So there's other things out there that build panels, they build components. We build volumes. And the easiest way I try to think about it for people is if you're in a typical 3-star hotel, which is a center hallway building, you've got a room on either side with a bathroom. What we would do is we would take that center hallway building and we would build a cross section of it. So we could go 70 feet long, 16 feet wide. So you're going to capture from one side of the building, you'll have a room, bathroom, the hallway, a bathroom, and a room. We'll build that section, that Lego of the building, completely finished on the interior with all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and finishes. And we'll build it on an assembly line. And then we will build all the units needed for that building. Yeah. And then we'll stack them like a Lego. And like you said, the unique part is we're building to the California Building Code and the Commercial Building Code, so residential and commercial. The only limit we have is what you can do seismically with wood. Mm-hmm. So if you build on site, you can build basically 5 stories with wood. That's the limit. That's the limit. I don't know if it is the Universal Building Code. You can do 18. They're recommending 18 for wood these days. 5. It's not universal. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. What you're. I thought the international standards were recommendation. So we're in seismic zone. In California, we have higher seismic zones. So 5 is the cap. 5 is the cap. Wood. You can push to 6. It gets very complicated, but you can do it. So type 3 and type 5. Type 5 is your most typical type of construction. It's a lightweight wood frame engineered design. So that means you're using plates, sticks, top plates, and shear value, and all the typical things you're used to seeing. So if you use steel, that's not type 5. Mm-hmm. If you use a lot of steel. If it's a moment frame of steel. So if you're using lightweight wood frame, you can get to 5 stories. Now, what's typical for us and what you'll find is that's kind of a sweet spot because you're using an economical material that's renewable, and you're building it to its max structural ability. Obviously, there's a lot of redundancy and safety factor. But in California, what we decided was that type 3, type 5 construction meets 90% of the need because there's only a few places in urban cities where you need to be over 5 stories. Now, that 5 could be over a podium with 2 layers, 3 layers of parking under it. So it's the number of stories on top of the concrete. So when you look around, even when you go to most cities, you'll see a lot of 5, we call them 5/2s, 5/3s. So that's all stuff we can build. And so the only reason you would switch out of our system is if you wanted to go 7, 8, 9 stories, which is a pretty niche need. Yeah. And our main mantra is to basically innovate housing in the West Coast and across the US. And so when we look at housing types, 5 stories and under accomplishes the goal very well. Yeah. And so if you go to like a light steel frame or different systems, you can get higher, but it comes at a huge premium. Yeah. And it doesn't really scratch the itch for most communities. Right. All right. So tell us about what do you make right now? What's your product mix?
So the interesting is a lot of times when people encounter what we do, they say, "Show me the products."
Yeah.
And my unique take on how to do this is that we don't build products. We have a process innovation. So that's kind of the way I like to twist it. Is I go, if it's 5 stories and under and it's out of wood, I can build it.
Anything.
Now you got to let me be part of the design team,
right?
And you got to let me be part of the engineering team, and we can build it. And so that doesn't mean it like every product is perfect for our system or is even the best fit, but it does mean that with the team we've built with this design build mentality, we actually nicknamed our factory kind of a design build factory, because some of the other plans that exist, they build a product.
They build a box.
They build a box.
And that's what you guys were going to kind of do, but now you're like, hey, we'll just do the whole thing for you. It's way easier.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not the first to think of this.
Yeah.
I toured 5 other plants before we set on how we were going to do it. And what you find is there's kind of like 3 buckets for volumetric modular. And volumetric modular represents, I think, the most viable prefabrication or modular, or what they call industrialized construction methodology, as far as it addresses housing. There's other novelty products out there that you see around, but I don't think they really have the traction to be something that changes our industry. Right. So volumetric modular, there's different people coming at it from different angles. There's some plants that used to be mobile home builders, which if people don't know, that's a HUD code. It's a federal code. It's a lesser code. That's why those things are tinder boxes and they go up like crazy.
Right.
So, and they don't permit the same, they don't finance the same, you can't go multi-story, et cetera, et cetera. They don't. And so there's people that were building mobile home that kind of got smart and started building a little more advanced, and they grew into what we call volumetric modular, and now they're good plants building, 3-star hotels and apartment complexes. So that's one bucket. The other bucket you find is like what I call the architect's dream, where they're really beautiful designs and they have this idea, but they're really not a builder, they're not a manufacturer, but they have like a really boutique setup. And those boutique setups usually don't fare well at any scale. So there's probably a dozen of those around the West Coast where they build 20, 30 units a year. They're very expensive.
Right.
They're beautiful, but they aren't going to address anything on an innovation or housing, scale. Yeah. So we're kind of this weird middle ground where I have an architecture, engineering, and building background and manufacturing background. And we're building a plant that can produce at volume, but it is dedicated to process innovation. And so it's flexible. We can do, some different, we can do things that other plants wouldn't be able to do, but we can do them at a pace and a scale that's still efficient. So we're not sacrificing quality. We're not sacrificing our design sensibility just to get a price point. Yeah. We're trying to really find that intersection.
Yeah. Because how many apartments could you build at
scale
capacity with one plant?
Yeah. Our plant in Redding, Anderson, California, actually is to be producing 1,000 units a year.
1,000 doors. 1,000 doors.
Well, it'd be 1,000 units, and a unit to us is about 700 to 800 square feet.
Okay.
It's a cross section of the building, so that if it's a hotel, that could be 2 doors.
Yeah.
Or if there's studios, it could be 2 doors.
Right.
So, but if you
could
just
be 1-bedroom apartments.
Yeah, a mix. So it could be a 3-bedroom and you need 3 boxes to build it. Right. So, but 1,000 units a year is about 1 million square feet of housing a year.
Wow.
So that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot.
It's a lot.
But when you think about if we go do a 3-star hotel, it's 200,000 feet. So, I mean, a good hotel could be 150 to 200,000 feet. Right. A good apartment complex could be 100 to 200,000 feet. So you're like, it could be 5 apartments a year, big ones.
Yeah, huge ones.
But we're not building projects that scale yet. We have some really large projects coming next year, but our average transaction is probably 30 to 50 units. Right?
Yeah. So what problem are you solving? Obviously, this sounds kind of like an obvious question. You talked about the workforce component of it, but like, what problems do you solve by building it the way you build it in a warehouse?
Right.
Because you're building in a warehouse right now.
Yeah. There's 2. So we have an assembly line for people who can visualize. Imagine like what Henry Ford did 100 plus years ago. That's what we're doing with housing. The complexity of what we do is if you build a mobile home, you build 100 floor type bays.
Right.
And you can build inventory. If you build a car, you build inventory.
Yeah, right.
And then you have a dealership model that throttles it out. Well, with what we do, there is no inventory and there is no dealership.
You're not building spec stuff.
There's nothing. You're not allowed to.
Right.
So the way the code
You're not allowed
reads,
to.
you're not allowed to.
Oh, wow.
So this is what makes our business very difficult and has provided some angst, is that I'm trying to maintain a perfectly efficient manufacturing process and sync that up to a developer's timeline. And a developer's timeline could be a 3 to 5 year cycle.
Right.
So I'm trying to sync up with their process of entitlement, land planning, financing, getting the pro forma, permitting, and then I'm trying to put it on the line to keep my flow perfect, and they're in these long cycles. So I'm trying to produce a unit a day right now, and they're trying to get one project done every 3 years, and we're trying to make those two perfectly combined. So the value proposition, when it works right, is that when you're breaking ground and you're moving dirt, your units are being built. So you have a parallel path.
Right.
So you're no longer constrained by the site. So when we used to build custom homes, we could say like, hey, you really can't have more than about 10 people on a job site before you start losing efficiency. So your goal is to keep, on a macro level, 5 to 10 people working at all times.
Right.
And obviously have no down days. That would be like a great run. Well, that pretty much determines how much you can put in the ground. We could put $200,000 in the ground into the project a month. And it was hard to go much faster on a small site. So same concept, but on a big apartment complex, you have to bring everyone to the job site. You have to park them. You have to disrupt the neighborhood. You have to, you have all that commute time. All the material has to come into that site. So you just think of like the logistics bottleneck that's built into site building. So while you're moving dirt and grading and getting your foundation done, your units are going down an assembly line.
Right.
The whole supply chain's diverted to an optimized place. And then what we're shipping to site is the equivalent. Each truck is carrying the equivalent of about 500 man hours of factory time, which is about 1,000 man hours of site time. So when the crane goes to start stacking, and we can stack about 14 units a day, every pick, every 30 minutes is about 1,000 man hours coming into the site.
Yeah.
And you're doing that in the cleanest, safest way possible. You might see a crane in the air and go, wow, you're picking up 50,000 pounds and craning it. Yeah, but we have all these protocols and safety, and we just replaced 1,000 man hours of labor.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, so for example, today, right now, when we're recording this, you're placing a unit. We'll talk about some of the units you're building in town. But yesterday morning, there was a foundation.
There was a foundation.
By the end of today or tomorrow,
you're
going to have, by the end of today, you're going to have a 2-story multifamily mixed use building built by City Hall.
That's right.
It'll be up. It'll be vertical.
I don't know the total footage on it. I think it's around 20,000 feet. I believe I want to say like 20 modules or so, maybe 22 modules.
It's like
that.
15 or 16 apartments or something like that?
So it's a commercial building on the bottom with offices, corporate headquarters, and then it has different product types of, I think, 1-2 bedroom and studio on the second floor. And this is an amazing project for FaithWorks, which is you probably know as much about them as I do. They're fantastic in town, and they do different programs. I think they do this specific campus, and I'm sure they'll get some time to talk about it soon, but it's got some veteran housing for off the street recovery. It's got some, I think, domestic abuse housing. It's got different programs they run. And so it's an amazing cause, amazing project, but there was absolutely no way they could do it site built with a budget.
Right.
And so we're able to save them time and money.
Yeah.
Anytime government gives money to anything,
it gets really complicated.
It gets complicated. It gets expensive.
Right.
And so if we can, get that grant, get that dollar to the right cause, and then actually affordably get them built, then that's what we're after. So, a pretty complex project built from foundation to, I would say, the structures, not like the flat work.
Sure.
They'll probably be 80% done by the end of the day.
80% done. So a foundation Monday morning, to 80% set and done by the end of today, which is Tuesday. So 2 days, you're going to have 20,000 square feet.
8 months out of their project, 6 to 8 months.
So that's incredible. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of siding and all this other stuff.
It's all on.
Nothing. It's all there.
Windows are in, siding's on, roof's on.
I know there's lots of other components, but like when could you actually, if there was no other complications with any other subs or any other site work, how soon could you actually move in there?
K2 is the GC, they're running it, and they're running the site. So I would have to look harder. But like when we do a more straightforward
in theory,
an apartment complex After set, we try to target 60 days
60 days.
for a boutique project like that.
That's incredible.
If it's a large,
we got an ADU and you could have moved in the same day you set it.
Yeah,
The same
potentially.
day.
Yeah.
Like, there's a foundation that was done. A couple days later, you guys come back, set the ADU.
Yeah.
And the tenant could have moved in the next day.
Yeah, physically it looks that way. Hook up
Right.
some utilities, and then honestly, you just chase the jurisdiction and sign up.
Right.
So there's a little chase involved.
But again, like you said, you're not dealing with local permitting.
Right.
For the actual like building code and all that stuff. All that stuff is through HCD, correct?
That's right.
Housing and Community Development out of Sacramento.
That's right.
So you basically have like an inspector in the warehouse all the time at this point, and you're getting all those sign-offs. So there's no local building code review at all, except for some of that, foundation,
Exactly.
whatever.
So what people don't realize is how the state is set up, which is actually fairly typical. We have a state building code, California building code, which is volumes, and then the Department Housing Community Development adopts that, and then they delegate all the authority to exercise that to each city and county. Then the city and county staffs their building official, planning official. They have a responsibility to carry out the state building code. That's what
Right.
they're doing. Their planning side has a responsibility to comply with California planning standards. So they draft their own planning documents, the
general
land
plan.
use, general plan, all that kind of stuff. So every local jurisdiction has their own planning side that is unique and has to follow certain guidelines. But the building code is the building code. So a lot of people talking about building get things mixed up altogether.
Right.
But there's land planning and entitlement. What are you allowed to do with land and
Right.
where? And that's nuanced. Then there's the state building code, which is safety and health and safety. That's actually what it is.
Right.
Health, safety, and energy efficiency.
Right.
And so that is a uniform code. And there's people think that every jurisdiction is different. There's tiny nuances, but 90% of that variance is on the planning side.
Yeah, design criteria, lighting, and plans.
Yep.
So before we get into another local project you're working on, because I want to talk about the Good News Rescue Mission project, you know better than almost anybody I know, because you've worked throughout the state of California in so many different types of products or projects. Why is it so freaking expensive to build in California?
Yeah.
That is a loaded question with a ton of different variations, but
Yeah.
what's the simplified version of why it's so dang expensive?
Yeah, that's good. And you're right. I built buildings just this last month. We in San Diego, all over the central coast of California, LA, Inland Empire, up the mountains, up here in Redding, East Bay. So we're all over the place and have been for a long, long time. Why is it expensive in San Diego? Why is it in California? Sometimes when you layer on bureaucracy, one layer at a time, you're like, oh, it's just one more layer. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And then eventually you look up and you've just got this book, and it's heavy. I looked at buying a business in Texas 8 years ago, went out to Austin and met with some people. It was a building business. And I was doing due diligence on this home builder. And the questions I was asking, I was getting the dumbest looks. Because well, you can't do that. They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, you're not allowed to do that. And they're like, what are you talking about? And so I came in, it's like the fish who doesn't know he's in water.
Right.
And I go over to Texas and I'm analyzing a business. And I'm like, well, you're not allowed to bill that way. Your work comp has to look like this, this, and this.
Right.
Oh, in California, if you look at me wrong, you're now an employee and not a 1099. There's just and over there, there's just none of it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, you can't look at the bureaucratic layers and say this one costs this much, this one costs this much, but they all have a cost. So I think there's twofold. There's our business environment as a whole
is challenging.
Yeah. Employing people in California is the most expensive place I know to employ them. I'm sure there's somewhere in New York that's more expensive, not just because of the wage, but I don't take the time to teach. It's not like my burden for the employee base, but my children, I'm teaching them now. They actually, some of them work for me sometimes.
Yeah.
And they go, I'm making X dollars an hour.
The tax deductible for you too. So part of it. Yeah.
And then they go, Dad, how come my check's this big? And I go, all right, life lessons.
Yeah.
And then I explain to them, for every dollar you lost on your side, I paid more on the employer's side.
Yeah.
So this guy is, my son making $20 an hour is actually costing me $48 an hour to employ.
Jeez.
And that's if he doesn't get hurt.
Right.
And that's if he doesn't make a mistake.
Right.
And that's if, and so, I could go on and on about the business environment. There's billboards when you drive down the street that say sue your employer.
Right. That does not make it easy.
No.
What about the building code side?
Yeah, the
What
building
about
code side.
Because I would say the average house right now in Reading probably is going to cost you. How much do you think per square foot? Like
to build?
$300 a square.
Yeah.
To build?
You can't build for cheaper than you can buy.
Yeah.
So we have friends come in all the time. Oh, we want to build. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah, just buy it.
Just
and then
buy
spend
it.
a bunch of money on remodels, and you're
It's
still going to come out ahead.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So building in California is interesting because the irony is the first home I ever owned, or I didn't own it, but I rented it with my wife after we were out of the apartment phase. We lived in San Luis Obispo, and we had one of those wall heaters.
Oh yeah.
Right, you
I
turn it on and
Humboldt.
off.
I had one of those in Humboldt.
Yeah, and it's like one spot in your house, and it's just gas, and it just burns a little flame. And we had no air conditioning.
Right.
Because
you don't need it in the Central Coast.
Yeah,
typically.
You're not required. Right. And so, and I remember thinking like, we never turned that thing on. And then if it got hot, we opened a window.
Yeah.
And we had single pane aluminum windows from 1970. And there was a breeze through the house at all times because this is this old shack of a house. But if I build the same new home next to it, I have to put in the most over-the-top, energy-efficient, complicated HVAC system.
Yeah.
For the home that doesn't need one at all,
With all
you
your
just open the window.
All the engineering calcs
That's right.
and Title 24
That's right.
and everything else.
So even in my career in 25 years, it's escalated incredibly. So when you go, our plan set to submit is thicker and thicker every year.
Right.
More and more sheets, more and more consultants involved. You used to be able to build a home with barely any consultants. You could follow simple structural tables, or you could involve the structural engineer. You're done. I mean, we would spend 20 or 30 grand to get a plan submitted. I mean, now I do a custom home. It's $100,000 in consultant fees, easy. Yeah. Between a geotech engineer, a civil engineer, a Title 24 engineer, structural engineer, and architect or drafting, depending on what you're doing, and then you might have to bring in. And then they produce reports that often, we basically like have a window and door company. So then we have to try to sync. Oh, it calcs like this for the glazing. Oh, great. What? Nobody makes glazing that will meet that requirement.
Right.
So then you're just trying to solve a math problem that doesn't want to be solved. And so you end up with, what California is going after is this energy efficient, safe building code. But where we've taken it is a lot of extra money spent on things that are going to have to be replaced in 10 years anyways. So I guess I would say the code has driven us to spend money on things that you wouldn't normally spend money on that may or may not be good.
Right.
And then additionally, we just have a supply chain that's archaic.
Yeah.
So if you look at all the building material coming, it hasn't changed a lot over the last 50 years.
Right.
And so there's manufacturing, distribution, retail. There's all these layers just to get you one thing to build with, and so there's just layers of margin in it and a lot of waste. And
so if you were king for a day of California, like a real king, not like Gavin Newsom who thinks he's a king.
Yeah.
If you were king for the day, what would you do to make building more affordable?
I think you could talk about rolling back some of the bureaucratic requirements. And, the state has actually passed a bunch of uniform state law, which kind of tries to create this ability to leverage the economy of a giant state, because you couldn't. It was so nuanced. So they've done a good job. I think what's delicate now with fixing the problem is that, like you've seen with some of these laws where they say, hey, you can do this density now here.
Right.
And you're like, well, shoot, it's tough, because you're like, what about all the people who built the last 20 years? They just kind of got
now you're going to
hosed.
put a 8-plex in their neighborhood?
Yeah. And that property has an exit strategy where they can make a bunch of money, but it's at the cost of like the neighborhood, or it's at the cost of the guy who built last year who didn't get that exception. And, I went in recently to build a personal project, and it was a secondary home, and I had to pay, I forget, it was going to be like $50,000 in impact fees.
Right.
And then I called an ADU and it's zero.
Yeah.
And you're like, but this was like 5 years ago. It's like that definition didn't exist the day before, and then it did, and then it was just like, So I think anytime you start changing things, you have to like really stare at all the unintended consequences. But
I don't think Sacramento thinks about that very often.
Yeah.
unintended consequences. They don't.
So the way you roll it back has to be careful.
Yeah.
That's all. And there's going to be collateral damage for sure.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, you have to just go back to common sense and just say, hey, you know, does every home need to be taken to an energy calc here? You know, well, they should have here's a minimum standard, here's a recommended standard, but pushing everybody here adds $30,000 every build, and does it really affect anything anyways? You know, that kind of stuff. So I would probably relax the Title 24 code.
Energy calcs.
They push it hard. I would give people freedom to heat and cool the homes with different systems. So like right now, here's the irony of the code. Here's an example. If you build a small home and you don't have natural gas, which a lot of places don't anymore, or they are on propane, you have to use an electric hot water heater. Well, you have to use a tanked heat pump hot water heater. So it's $1,000 hot water heater that takes up about a 3x3 space.
Right.
And it makes a lot of noise. And
you can't use a tankless?
you cannot use an electric tankless and make it calc, because when the way the calculation works, again, back to this energy thing, they say how efficient is the electric use per degree of hot water change. They don't give you a bonus for the fact that it's off 99% of the time. They just say when it's heating, is it using electricity efficiently? So, and the answer is it doesn't. And so you need to like have like 60 amps to the heater, and then it's not an efficient conversion. And so you're back to this tanked hot water heater with a heat pump. So then you have this overly complex thing that is running a fan all the time in your home and putting out cold air all the time into your home. And you're like, how did we get back to this complicated, this is our only solution? So yeah, I would relax it all. I mean, I was out at a vacation house the other day, and it just had like electric baseboard heaters. Like, remember when we were allowed to do those? So easy. Like everything just, you know, you never turn them on anyways. And, yeah. So I would relax the energy code. I would probably go after the impact fee structure. I've had more project lost because the impact fees break the pro forma of the project.
Is there any specific impact fee that hits the hardest?
I mean, when I look at impact fees, if people aren't familiar, like say you want to build new construction, and they basically take a flat fee off the top for, I mean, they have school fees.
School fees are separate from the city.
So they have a school fee, which could run $4 to $6 a square foot or more, depending on where you are. Then they have like, if you know, they'll just take something off the top for sewer infrastructure build out, water infrastructure build out,
traffic, police, fire, parks.
The infrastructure build out of a growing city is an issue. But trying to assess it on the people who are adding value to it, it slows down the ability to grow. And so when you slow down the ability to grow, then you basically, you know, you inhibit everything. So if you're saying, hey, our sewer does need to be upgraded in the next 20 years, that's real. But I don't think the way you collect that money is by saying everybody who wants to add value to our community has to pay a fee that breaks their budget.
I was not expecting to talk about this today, but I'm right in the middle of the City of Reading's development impact fee.
It's become so normal, though, that is how you do it.
And the interesting thing is it's July. It's taken about 7 months. We started in January, and we talked about water, wastewater, parks, fire, and traffic. We don't have a police impact fee. Some cities do. Some cities have lots of other fees. And my lens is typically commercial, industrial. What's this going to cost? You know, if you're Amazon probably spent, I don't know the exact number, but probably about $1.5 million on impact fees at Stillwater. And they're like, hey, this is great. No problem. Write a check.
Because it's cheaper than doing it somewhere else.
And it was an easy process for them. It was fully entitled, all those things. So they pay it. You know, they're paying about $75,000 into a park impact fee because we believe, hey, they are impacting, their employees are going to impact parks usage. So we're going to charge them a park fee. They also probably paid something on the order of, I'm guessing probably $400,000 in traffic impact fees, even though the City of Reading is the developer at Stillwater, and they already built the road and the bridges, in the infrastructure.
But it is interesting.
But it goes into a big pot. It's not just used for right there. It goes into a big pot. That their $300,000 or $400,000 or whatever it was for impact fees for traffic could go to a future project in Oasis because it goes into a big bucket and it kind of feeds all these other projects. And the big thing that I've learned from this is like a lot of us complain about our roads. Impact fees don't go towards maintenance. They go towards increasing traffic flow. So if we think we're at sea level traffic flow in town and we want to stay at C, we got to keep our fees the same. But if we want to go to a B, we have to charge more. If we want to go to a D and have worse traffic, which in Reading is kind of funny, we can lower those fees. So, we're trying to do this balance of like, yes, we need impact fees for parks and roads and all these things, but like at what level does it make sense? Because my opinion is probably a little bit more extreme where I'm like, hey, if you let Amazon build or Costco build, you're going to get property tax, you're going to get sales tax, you're going to get new employees. So the indirect benefit of this could be tens of millions of dollars a year. Is this $300,000 and $400,000 fee worth it? Sometimes it is. I get it. I'm not saying get rid of them.
We were talking
about
about
find a balance
this morning, this concept of like, there's a Bible verse that says like, those who sow in tears will reap in joy. And the idea is, if you've got, are you going to make a long-term investment in next year's crop, or are you going to grind it up and make bread today?
Right.
So you're going to be hungry today,
Yeah.
but you're building the future, right? And so that's just a concept of like, sow your seed. Don't eat it. Don't think short. Don't think short.
Yeah.
And so the way I would interpret that is, you're like, hey, you can grab money off people now because they're stuck, right? These are the rules. But wouldn't it be better to have people making long-term investments of creating employment and longevity in the community? And so if I could choose one, if these incentives are at odds, I would go with the long-term, which that doesn't mean you ignore fees or infrastructure build out, but it just says, hey, if we could get businesses and people making investments in the community as a whole, that's better. I think what I've seen with city and regional planning, and then we're getting way off topic, but I love it, is a city needs to grow at a certain rate. And if it grows at a certain rate, there's a natural, like anything, like the derivative, the rate of growth, if it's going at a certain rate, then it can basically take care of itself.
Right.
If it flatlines, it gets very dangerous.
We're flatlining right now.
Exactly.
Which is not a good situation.
So that when you flatline or regress, it's very dangerous because turning that around is like, it takes evasive action. You can't do normal things and turn that around. It's impossible, because that home on the edge of town that's dilapidated and built in 1920, it should be torn down or redeveloped into something nice, right? But the property value and the investment has to be worthwhile.
Well, the economics don't really work.
Right, if you're flat. But if that home that was in 1920 and it's ready to be torn down because it's just falling over, right? If that home, if someone can come in and say, hey, I can buy that for $200,000 and I can spend $500,000 and I'll have 2 or 3 units there, and it actually makes sense, and the property values have appraised enough, then all of a sudden you get this natural investment happening. But when you're flatlining, what gets dangerous is it doesn't make sense to invest, and so people just start looking for corners to cut. How do I not permit this structure? How do I not pay tax? So they start looking
how do
for
I get away from this impact fee? Because every little bit is hurting.
Right. Versus this makes sense and the future looks bright, so I'm going to make the investment and go.
I think coming back to what your guys' value proposition is, speed is it right now. Affordability is coming. I think for certain projects, it makes a lot of sense right now. Because I think one of my last podcasts was with Assembly Member Heather Hadwick. We talked about affordability. And I've been talking about this with a ton of city leadership, and they know this, but I have to reinforce it because you look at Reading or Shasta County, and we have not had a market rate apartment built in Reading for, maybe 20 years.
And I've met with developers in town who have just said it does not work.
And the problem is, it doesn't pencil, right? So if your cost of construction for a 12-unit apartment complex is $350
a door,
a square foot, or whatever it is, maybe $200,000 a door, or whatever the number is, you cannot make a practical investment and get your money back. You can't. That's the big problem.
Well, you have two options. Either, so this is the reality we have to face, and a lot of communities have to face it, is anybody who builds in this town, market rate, is banking on a 10 to 20 year future.
Right.
And they're willing to basically lose or get a less return or flatline return or almost nothing because they believe in the future.
Right.
Now, most wise people would look at it and say, that's a bad idea.
Right.
But some people still do it anyways because they're legacy. I built for people locally. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, it's just legacy. I've been here 3 generations. It's what we do. I'm keeping people employed. And you're like, that's fine. Good for them. Like, amazing. Right. But that's not a sustainable practice.
The economics just don't work.
And the other one is you go get gap funding. And as soon as you take gap funding, whether it's tax credit or grant funds, then you're in prevailing wage. So then you end up in this weird dichotomy of it didn't make sense to build, so I'm going to get a program to help fund it.
And you're going to make it twice as expensive.
Make it twice as expensive.
If not 3 times more expensive.
And then people working will actually get paid prevailing to do a job that shouldn't pay prevailing, in my opinion. And then you start creating all these weird, like workarounds, incentives, and you're confusing the market. And so,
and if you're paying people prevailing wage and then they're going to go build a non-prevailing wage apartment complex, good luck. I mean, I'm super grateful.
So you're
for
screwing with our labor market.
Yeah.
Like our labor market should be this beautiful, you skill up and you keep going and you keep adding value and train others. Instead, it's like, hey, I can make $60, $70 an hour on this project, and then I'll just go home and sit, and I'll just play this game. And, and you're like, this is not healthy.
Yeah.
So US Offsite is the exact opposite.
Right.
We are a campus where people come every day. We rally together at 6 a.m. We start with gratitude. We start with training. And then we go into specific niches on our assembly line, and we do constant, continuous innovation, lean manufacturing principles. And we're teaching everybody on our team lean manufacturing principles, which is a state of continuous improvement for yourself, for your character, for your skills. And the goal is to keep people in that posture so they just continually grow.
Right.
And we actually see stability and innovation. So that's what we're after. And basically, we work a 4-10 schedule. And the idea is we can provide a solid runway that people can build a life on. Right. And construction is not known for being a place that has a great work environment.
Reliable.
It's not reliable. Right. And so, we have our own growing pains with all these factors, but everybody who works with us, like they're known, they're invested in like crazy. We hire them with a long-term vision for them to grow, whether they stay or not, but their time with us is going to be an improvement on their life. Yeah. And so with the structure we have, we're able to design a program where their skills are being invested in and their character. And what that means is that people who wouldn't normally be able to join a 3-man crew and go out in the boonies and frame a house, they can come in and start at the bottom. And it also means that guys who've been on a 3-man crew framing a house and they have nowhere to go vertically, they're at the top, they can come in and lead. And as we add more people, they end up in more and more leadership. And so we kind of give a whole different avenue of growth that you wouldn't see in typical trade work.
I've been around your factory again, all these different iterations, and I pop in every few months. I try to. Constructions can be a gritty job. Yeah, you guys have a very unique culture. Yeah, why do you put such an emphasis? I mean, from the very beginning, when you had like one employee. Yeah, besides yourself. Yeah, when you had like one employee, you started with this like really strong culture first model, which I've really never seen before. You was just like, hey, we got to get the job done, whatever. But you focused on culture first, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Why is that so important to you guys?
Well, companies we had built before, we got to about 100 people, 120 people. And what I saw was that if I cared a ton and I ran around and kissed babies and shake hands and make everybody feel good, right, that can feel really good, but there's a limit. And for me, it was 100 people. And you could read this in a book. You don't need to hear from me. But essentially, if we don't replicate the quality of the people down through the company, then there's going to be a huge drop off in the experience of working here and in our ability to output. And our goal is 300 people in Anderson producing a unit a day, or excuse me, producing 4 units a day. Yeah. That's our target goal. And so we knew the only way to do that would be to build real leadership, build into people. Yeah. And I also was very aware that the company would be bigger than what I could personally manage very quickly. So we knew that even though it was me sitting in a room, that within 2 years, it would be beyond my ability to, operate personally. Yeah. I would really need layers of amazing people. And so we went to work from day one of building those layers. Yeah. And we knew that our approach to scaling would be not that we want to invite great people in at the top, right, but if we could build the layers of leadership that could hold the quality of our experience and the training and the care, then we could basically keep adding without eroding. Yeah. And so that's been our approach. So right now we run, I think, somewhere between like 40 and 60 people, depending on where we are. And we're trying, I think next year we'll hit 100 people. But we haven't had to build a ton of leadership as we add on 10, 20, 30% work staff because the leadership's rising. Yeah, right. And so that's kind of been our methodology. I mean, I've tried to hire senior leaders before in other organizations, and you get, I call it organ rejection.
Right.
The whole body's like, nope.
Yeah.
And so we've just seen like the most beautiful way to do this would be to raise leaders up.
Yeah.
And so that means their technical ability, and that means their ability to lead people, all has to grow. So the investment in that day one was huge. I mean, I had a couple people join early specifically because they shared that vision.
Right.
And they were like, I'm willing to do this because it's going to lead to the biggest impact.
That's cool.
So,
and maybe tell us about some of the people that are working for you. I mean, you obviously have a lot of high technical expertise, which I don't really care so much about those guys. They're great. They're awesome. We love all those guys. But tell us about some of the kind of the entry level people, because you have some interesting characters that are coming to work for you guys, and they're turning out, from what I've seen, to be great employees.
Overall, amazing. I mean, I will start at the top though. I mean, just to paint a picture, we have to merge manufacturing practices with architecture practices, with construction practices, and supply chain, and kind of crush it together. And so there really is no model for it. Right. So some of the guys I have at the top are just phenomenal, because we're looking at best manufacturing practices. How would that actually work in blue collar? We're looking at how do you take this construction supply chain and tweak it where it actually can supply a plant effectively? So that's like inventory controls and you know, if a structure gets built today and the same builder goes and builds the next one, it'll be full of different SKUs.
Sure.
Like that's just reality. People don't realize. Because he's going to hire a sub, and sub's going to source the thing and the part and whatever. And your fixtures might be what you chose, but everything behind that fixture, you have no idea what it is. Right. You're just trusting. And so we've had to iron all that out. So the top is really amazing people. And then there's a data component to all this. And that comes into the future, and AI and automation. It has to do with, starts with the data of what is what does every step take, and every activity, and mapping all that. And so it's really quite a frontier of the space. But the guys actually doing the work are amazing. We have guys in there that are 30-year veterans in their trade and their training. We have other guys that are there that are restarting their life. Right. I think that's where you're headed. We've made a point to make sure that this place is a place where somebody gets a shot, who maybe needs a second shot, maybe needs a third shot. And so because we have structure and accountability with everything we do in the factory, that means a guy walking in is like, hey, I got the shirt on my back, and that's all I got. We can work with that. And basically we kind of have a criteria of a minimum level of health they need to be in, and a minimum level of capacity. Right. So like they have to be healthy enough, in a healthy enough place. Maybe they came out of a program, maybe they're, you went through something hard in life. Right. And then they have to be able to show up every day at 6 a.m. And be reliable. And if they can do that, then we can start building again with them. Right. And we've probably seen at least a dozen guys in the last couple of years just take off like a rocket. And the structure is beautiful. For a long time, I had guys come in to work on Fridays on their day off. And we have a Bible study that runs on Fridays. And they just hanging at the shop. I'm like, you guys don't need to be here. Like, no, this is where we want to. We want to hang. We're studying the Bible. We're gonna hang out together. And it's like the structure and the brotherhood is really something special. That's cool. That's cool. So let's talk about one of your other projects that's coming down the pipe. So you guys are working right now on the Good News Rescue Mission. It's a B-CHIP program, which is a behavioral health. I don't remember the rest of the acronym, but it's state funding. Right. And it's a medically assisted rehabilitation facility at the Good News Rescue Mission. I believe it's 75 beds, and that's going to be set probably sometime this fall, early fall. And so you guys are working on that, which that's a transformative project for the mission and our community. It's, another day in the office for you guys, I suppose, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal for our community to have medically assisted rehabilitation, and the ability for US Offsite to come in and partner on this project. It really makes it feasible, because otherwise it was going to be we're back to that formula of here's a great organization that has found that gap funding, which is great. I think Jonathan talked about it. Hey, the money's going somewhere. Let's put it in our community and let's do something. But it triggers a whole bunch of requirements, and so then you have a nonprofit going, we got to land develop. How are we going to do this? And they're like, we'll help. And so, concept was brought. Ryan Russell's the architect, beautiful building. And we said, okay, this is the vision. If you want to use our technology and delivery system, we got to tweak, and make it work. And this building, I would dare to say, is probably one of the most aggressive uses of volumetric modular. Meaning, when I look at all of our colleagues running big plants, they're not doing things this complex in this boutique, and this is complex and boutique. And so we love it because it's a challenge, and I'm kind of up for anything. So so we walked with the design team and the development team through permitting that with the state, with the local, and we put the modular. We break that whole building down into each individual piece that we're going to build, and then we tweak it further to optimize it to the plant floor. So for instance, we might run 5 units down the line first, and those 5 units don't necessarily sit next to each other in the building. They might be from, so we design for, we take a building, reverse engineering into pieces that we can build. Yeah. Then we put the pieces in an order that is efficient to build them in, which might be totally out of order from the building. So it's not, this isn't complicated, but it's totally different from the way you would normally do it. And it's like the car. You don't put, you don't build it from the ground up. You build it in a way that's efficient to build it, and you put it together at the end. So we put that on the line a couple months ago, and it'll be off in about a month. And that whole building will be sitting in the yard. Yeah. And then I believe we'll break ground here shortly this fall. And then the idea is to have that whole thing dried in before winter.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
It'll be, the timing isn't all up to me, but assuming it goes efficiently, it'll be done, and it'll be done pretty aggressively over the next 6 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Dan. Like I said, I've known you for about 9 years.
Less gray.
Yeah,
for both of us.
I have more gray.
You do.
We both had a lot less back then. I think I have another kid or two, but at least one since we first met.
Yeah.
Everyone that listens to this pretty much probably knows my background. I used to be at the Shasta EDC. You guys are down in Anderson, which is where you broke ground. You broke ground in Anderson for a specific reason of opportunity zones, and I want to make that point clear because a lot of people are like,
"What's that?
Why are you not in Stillwater? Yeah. Why are you not in Reading? Yeah. Opportunity zones and tax credits and all these other things were a big deal, but we don't need to go down that road." You broke ground in Anderson in about April of 2020. We were thick into the beginning of COVID. You poured a 250,000 square foot pad or 225,000 square foot pad right next to what most people know as Wheelabrator, which is Sustainable Resource Management. Yeah. You bought a piece of Roseburg property, which was kind of a miracle in itself. Yep. Because at the time, for decades, they're never going to sell. Yeah. So you bought a Roseburg piece of property down in Anderson in an opportunity zone. Right. All the stars were aligned in 2020. Yes. And then it kind of sat there for a while. Most people were probably like, what happened? What's going on?
Yeah. In fact, if I go back and revisit that timeline, it was miraculous.
I mean, it really is.
Roseburg, we looked at a bunch of properties, and Roseburg, we somehow got on the phone with the CFO of Roseburg, and he said, "No, we're not selling it." And I said, "Well, let me tell you what I want to do with it. Yeah, I want to build the jobs that you used to have in this community. Yeah, the trade jobs committed to the forest industry." And he was like, "Okay, if you'll do that, I'll sell you the property."
Wood products.
Yeah, yeah. So that alone just kind of shows you, like, hey, there's still this pride in this industry that wants to revive itself. Sure. And I think everyone's waiting for it.
I think it's happening to a degree for sure right now.
Yeah. And so they sold to us. We entitled it within like a few months. The city of Anderson was amazing. Yeah. We like things that would take years in Southern California. The stars aligned. They had just annexed it in the city. Yeah. It just made things super simple. It was in an opportunity zone, which was key for us. And if people don't know what opportunity zone is, it makes development make sense. It really helps basically your 10-year outlook on building development. So basically what I did was we purchased the property, and we were planning to put up our 220,000 foot mega factory, I'll call it. That was our straightaway plan. Right. We had
don't start small, go big, go big or go home.
Well, I mean, the numbers don't lie. It actually makes sense.
Sure, totally. I get it.
And doing things smaller doesn't make a ton of sense. But to do that, you got to have business. And so we had a lot of interest from development community out of Southern California that wanted the product. And so it felt like there was enough interest, there was enough culminating. We're like, hey, we're gonna put this building up. We had some projects lined up. We're gonna get lift off. COVID hit, all the developers went quiet.
Yeah, because you must have closed escrow in late 2019 or early 2019.
I'm trying to remember. All I remember is like we went from closing to pouring concrete in like 5 months.
Yeah. So 2019.
Yeah, we poured in like February. It was like a 20-degree morning. Right. It was great. We bought out the entire concrete mix plant for like 2 days. Yeah. And just had it was super fun. Definitely the biggest thing I've ever seen, and all that. So that was our plan. So we put I'll just say several $1 million in the ground there.
Yeah, because you have infrastructure there too.
We have
you can't
stormwater, we have water,
big.
we have a lot of stuff done. We have all the grading done.
Yeah.
We have the foundations in, the building's permitted, ready to go. So we basically did everything we did with our own cash, and then we're looking to close a construction loan to do the building. And we got to that point with COVID where we're about to take on a $25 million loan and the debt service on that, and the development community is just frozen.
Right.
And so although I had all this money in and had pretty much put all my chips in, if there's a stop point, it's right now.
Yeah.
We basically had cash into it, and we were like, okay, this is painful to sit here, but this is the smarter move than to go put this building up.
Right.
The development community is totally on it's totally on ice.
Right.
And now we have a debt service that'll kill us over the next year.
Yeah.
So we froze it, and a couple things happened in that time period. And then interest rates went up. So it's like, okay, the COVID thing's over with the developers, and now the interest rates are up. Everything's penciling. Everybody's still pausing. And so, the good news is all the projects that were kind of slated, they're still there.
Right.
They're just slowly trickling in now.
Right. It's a long sales cycle.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I was sitting there going, okay, if we're not going to put up the big building and go, because that just doesn't make sense, what else should we do? And we came up with a plan to do a boutique factory.
Yeah.
Get these first
Kind of a
projects
proof of concept.
out. That's right.
Yeah.
Build up some momentum, build up some industry credibility, and then launch from there back to the big plan.
Everybody wants to see it. They want to see it.
They want to see it.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. So we started with 10,000 feet, and then we went to 20,000 feet. And we thought, okay, we'll operate in 20,000 feet. We can produce a couple units a week. We'll do a couple small projects, and we'll make the jump. Well, we just kept getting momentum. So then we went to 30,000 feet, 40,000 feet. I think we're at about 70 right now, and we have a little more expansion to do.
Yeah, you guys are just south of the airport in some of Reading's finest industrial space.
Finest industrial space. That's a great description.
Yeah.
So if you drive down Airport Road and you look, it goes south of the airport, you look over, you'll see some units stored there. You'll see our sign. And so what we have there is about 70, 80,000 feet. It's not laid out the way that we would really want it laid out, but it works. And what that does is it puts us kind of we're on the very larger end of small plants and on the small end of big plants.
Sure.
So we're actually in the game.
Yeah.
We're probably, we're very well considered in the West Coast US as like one of the 10 factories that can do things.
Yeah.
So we're already doing it, which is awesome. We just can't do it at the scale we want to do it.
But you've earned some street cred.
We've earned some street cred.
For sure.
Yeah. No black eyes. Though.
Yeah. So what does the future plant in Anderson look like? So again, a lot of people, if you drive by now, right across from Walmart heading south, if you look to the east, you see a bunch of boxes there. That's a bunch of products, so which is already going somewhere.
Really, really expensive storage
It's
right
great
now.
storage
right now. Very flat. Very flat. It's queued up and ready. The great part of operating this boutique plant that we've scaled out is that we've learned a ton. Like maybe in the end we're going to laugh because it was the right way to do it. We've learned so much about what doesn't work, what does work, what might work. And so the overall footprint of the future plant Anderson is still similar, but the workflow inside it, we have revamped it and dialed it and revamped it and dialed it.
Because you're doing it.
We're doing it right now. We're doing it. So we were able to take all the assumptions we had, validate them, vet them, test them, break them, and then basically plan for the future. So when we do move down there, it's probably going to be, from what I've seen of any plant that's opened, the most calculated opening from a plant that we've ever seen.
Yeah, because it's going to be a true assembly line. I mean, you got framers, mechanical, drywall guys, paint guys, going down literally like rail,
and then a bunch of pre-assemblies. That's really where the magic is what happens before it gets on the main assembly line. Right now we have, I think, 18 stations that we run our assembly line. That one will be about 30-ish.
Yeah.
But it'll have all this other pre-processing that will allow that line to move very fast.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so I'm really proud of the team for what we've done planning Anderson. And I think we have a shot to do something really special down there. And so we're just picking up speed right now and building a backlog to de-risk that move.
Sure.
And we're getting close.
Yeah, that's amazing. So at some point in the future, we're going to see a 225,000 square foot plant go vertical.
That's right.
Down in Anderson, which is going to be great. And again, I mean, it's going to be a huge win for our community because the potential and the way you're disrupting the construction industry it's been awesome to see it actually happen now.
One of the biggest challenges, which is full circle for us, about the flatlining of a city, when we went to underwrite this plant, we got told from everyone who's tried to underwrite the plant as far as the building of the plant, that if we put it in Vacaville, they would underwrite it, that it's a go.
Sure,
if we put it in Lathrop, if we put it in, Woodland.
Yeah.
But when you flatline a city and people go, hold it the same, make it the same,
Right.
and the growth stops, and I'm not saying it should be like hyper growth. What happens is you can't underwrite anything because the comps
it's awful.
are so depressed.
Yeah.
And so if anybody like me wants to do something that's a little bit out there, you have no support for it. Right. So basically they look around the community and go, show me a 200,000 square foot industrial building that was built in the last 10 years and what's it worth? And you're like, well, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, there hasn't been one built that big for a very long
time. And if it was built purpose-built for a company.
Sure.
There's no market for it.
Right.
And so that puts us in a very difficult real estate development posture that we have to overcome.
Right.
So, if anybody is anti-growth, I just say, hey, if you want, it sounds funny, but if you want your children to have an opportunity to do something great, we have to maintain a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough topic. Growth is a very, very tough topic in jobs and housing. It's all interrelated, and you guys kind of touch all of it. You're creating jobs, you're creating housing, you're doing you're really solving a major, major problem. So, where do you see the future of Shasta County? I mean, you guys are
the dream. The dream as it relates to us is we have 72 acres.
Yep.
30 of it's devoted to Plant 1. And so we have capacity at that property for supporting manufacturing. So as we spin up to scale, we hope that other people will catch a vision and say, hey, you need, we already have Knopf up the street. We have some good manufacturing supply chain that's here that'll flow. But, SRM has a mindset of growth. They're associates at Trinity Lumber.
Yep.
We're hoping that what we see as the dream is that not just in that Anderson corridor, but other corridors, that we see a real collaborative, cohesive manufacturing and forestry industry, really come together. And, I remember the first time I drove that property, I was like, I'm believing there could be 1,000 jobs in here.
That whole area has a ton of potential.
Yeah.
The old paper mill, all those things.
So that's the dream. 1,000 jobs in that corridor, an industrial powerhouse, that people have vertical movement for employment, that they see these industries that they're worth spending 10 or 20 years in because there's just tons of room to grow in them.
Yeah.
I think Reading one of the best things we have is our people. Yeah. And if we kind of get ourselves together right, and we can export that on a truck to ship into Southern California, I think that would be a great contribution. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where you guys go. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
The City Builders podcast is brought to you by Obsidian IT. Obsidian IT is a Reading-based, employee-owned technology company providing simple, scalable, outsourced IT for your business. Discover how Obsidian cares about IT and give them a call at 530-242-6000 or obsidianit.com. Obsidian keeps us running at the chamber, and we could not do business without them.